And Administrator Dixon, I appreciate your being here. Let me say I also appreciate the answers you have provided so far to the Quiet Skies Caucus, of which I am a co-chair. We are concerned, obviously, about allegations that FAA was a captive of the industry. So I want to ask you a series of questions that go to Boeing's delays in providing safety information. It looks like repetitive delays. We're trying to see whether or not we can break with that. In 2015, did the FAA enter into a settlement agreement with Boeing, that's 4 years ago, to resolve multiple enforcement cases against Boeing that were either pending or under investigation at the time?
Yes, we did.
Is it also true that under the agreement, Boeing had to immediately pay $12 million into the U.S. Treasury?
Yes, ma'am.
Moving forward, is it also true that Boeing faced up to $24 million in additional penalties through 2020 if certain conditions were not met?
That is correct.
Do these genesis of settlements show a pattern of systemic issues on the part of Boeing, including failure to identify problems, failure to put corrective actions in place, inadequate resources, and inadequate training?
Well, I would say I have yet to conclude that with respect to the settlement agreement, but it's something that's under consideration, and it could be the subject of future litigation, but I certainly reserve the right to take further action with respect to that agreement.
Yeah, we're talking about in the past now, failure to identify problems, failure to put corrective actions in place. You're saying that's under litigation?
Well, no, it's not under litigation, but it's a consideration about what actions may occur in the future with respect to the remaining actions before the 2020 timeframe that you talked about.
Well, I think those failures are pretty adequate, pretty clear, Administrator Dixon. In designing and developing and manufacturing the 737 MAX, Boeing has run into issues in meeting the obligations in most of these categories. Isn't that true?
I'm sorry, can you restate that? I'm not sure
Yes.
I understood the question.
In designing and in developing and manufacturing the 737 MAX, isn't it true Boeing has run into issues in meeting the obligations in most of the categories I just previously named?
I'm not aware, perhaps Mr. Lawrence may be aware, I'm not aware of any specific issues.
Well, has Boeing met all the obligations under the agreement?
That is still under evaluation right now.
Within the last decade, Boeing has had 2 worldwide groundings of relatively new airplanes, the 787 Dreamliner and 737 MAX, and encountered numerous compliance issues in the time since Boeing paid the $12 million settlement, and I'm assuming that settlement, that payment was made. Has FAA assessed any additional financial penalties on Boeing pursuant to the 2015 agreement?
Not at this time, but as I mentioned earlier, that is under consideration, and I reserve the right to go ahead and proceed appropriately.
Thank you, Mr. Dixon. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank the gentlelady. Representative Gibbs.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And